Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. Happy Thanksgiving week. We just get a couple things adjusted here, and then we're going to get started here in just about 30 seconds. I hope you guys all had a great weekend. I did too. It's always interesting when you go into Thanksgiving week. Um, I tend to be in a situation where I'm kind of readying for like a normal week, but then once I settle in on Monday morning, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be slower this week. And I want to talk about some of the tendencies for Thanksgiving week, but also want to talk about a couple of different trades and things that we are looking at. So we're now, let me see, I want to get to 2 minutes past the top of the hour. All right. All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday again. It's Monday, November 25th, Thanksgiving week. And I was just saying, when I typically settle into Thanksgiving week, it typically I get ready for like a normal week, but once I sort of settle in for a bit, I realize it's going to be a slower week. With that in mind, I want to focus on several things here today. I want to talk a little bit about the tendencies for Thanksgiving week. It tends to be more on the bullish side. It doesn't tend to be like blowout bullish, but it tends to be positive for U.S. equities. I want to talk about a couple of individual stocks. We're looking at the energy sector that continues to do well. I think the energy sector is now at a 6-month high, so that continues to work well. I want to talk about Apple, which this morning we're adding to our swing trading list over at Inner Circle. So if you're an Inner Circle member, you should have received a trade alert on that. But let's start off with the S&P 500, the SPY. So I mentioned this to our clients over Inner Circle and other places last week, and I said, listen, I think this Thanksgiving week, so week here obviously starting today, we could easily see 600, and 600 obviously is not a stretch from where we closed last Friday. We closed last Friday around 559.5 on the SPY. And so this morning, looking at futures right now, we're up about 70 basis points. The S&P futures are actually north of 6,000. And it looks like I'm looking at pre-market here. Give me 1 second. It looks like the SPY is literally at, I think we touched we touched 600 this morning. So I guess that went quickly. And the reason the market gapping higher this morning, if you're wondering if you're just waking up and you didn't read anything news over the newspaper over the weekend, it's because of Scott Bessent, or I don't know how you sort of rhythm his last name. Apparently going to be Treasury Secretary, and the market seems to like that, a finance guy, and so it makes sense that on a holiday thin week we see the equity market gap higher in a month. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting for this to continue in a linear fashion. Again, typically Thanksgiving week tends to be largely Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday you can get a bit of more choppiness. Thursday, U.S. markets are closed, obviously, and then Friday is a half a day. Now, also keep in mind, this is really interesting this year, and that's why I want to be open to all outcomes. But Friday is the last trading day for the month of November. So let me just check something here. And then, of course, December 1st is this coming Sunday. So basically, you have to think about, from an institutional investor's perspective, from a portfolio manager's perspective, what are you going to do? If you need to do anything to to round off the month of November, you're going to do it today or tomorrow. Wednesday, again, is a non-event. Most people, I don't even know, is Wednesday a half day? I can't remember if Wednesday's a half trading day. I'll have to look at it. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. The point is, Wednesday is typically a very slow trading day. So if you're an institutional investor, and I had a call this morning with a family office that they have to do some stuff here to round off the month. Again, you're going to do it here in the early part, and then Friday is a non-event. Again, always bearing any sort of outside news. let's look at a couple things here. First of all, I want to look at an individual stock, and then we'll come back to the, actually, no, let's start with the big picture first. So the one thing that I'm concerned about heading into December, and again, my base case remains that we're going to see higher equity prices here into the end of the year. Again, and I say into the end of the year, I don't mean that we're going to close at a record high on December 31st, but more that the trajectory here is still going to be some sort of a bid, and that's largely because of underperforming fund managers having to chase. But again, the one thing that I really is one thing I want to keep be open-minded to is the dollars. Now, the dollar is pulling back this morning, but we could easily see a situation where if the dollar goes, above the dollar index I'm looking at, above 108, we could start to see if yields also perk back up, call it 10-year above 4.6 or so, 7, maybe 4.8, the equity market could maybe not like that. I just want to be open-minded to that. Again, I think I mentioned this last Friday. Now, let's go into a couple individual stocks. First of all, I want to talk about PayPal. So PayPal is one of those stocks that I think has the potential, and this is just my view, obviously, this is purely educational. But I think PayPal is one of those stocks, along with maybe Uber, that has the potential to develop what's called a super app. We see these super apps, like, for example, in places like China, where you have certain apps that basically do anything from finance to whatever, kind of like everything. Uber is going in that direction, and I think PayPal has the potential for that too. Now, just keep that in the back of your mind as a long-term potential story. If we forget that long-term story and just look at the chart, this is the kind of chart that I want to be mindful of. First of all, I want to just give you a couple of real simple technicals here. If I go to the all-time low in September of 2015, and I go to the all-time highs, there is no, actually, let me make this a non-logarithmic chart here. There is like literally nothing in terms of support that this stock has held. So there's no Fibonacci's, nothing we can draw. It's just the stock just had a shit moment over the past few years. But what is happening now is the stock is and has developed this sort of basing pattern, and you have to go by fundamentals and technicals here, and it kind of looks like this. And so we call this turning the tide, turning the super tanker, and it just takes time, right? But you can see the stock is acting real well. It's successfully making higher highs, higher lows, and ultimately now, if you zoom into the daily chart, there's plenty of momentum here. So if you're using the trender, for example, there's a lot of positive. And that's our momentum indicator. There's a lot of positive momentum here, and I could see this continue. This is a classic trailing story. So that's one stock I want to put in your radar. The other stocks, and we've talked about this extensively over the past couple of weeks, again, energy, the XLE. This is one of my favorite long-term stories. I talk about the higher inflation for longer story. If you haven't yet received our report on this, please reach out to the team, and we can send you the reason why higher inflation for longer and what that means for portfolio positioning, and also for like where we want to focus from a trading perspective. But energy is one of those areas, and we're starting to see more and more stocks. Obviously, ExxonMobil, Chevron, goes without saying, those are the first companies that people tend to flock to for the very simple reason that we tend to see quality. People go to real quality first, and then they go further on the risk curve. That's the typical trade people do. But that's one. But we're even seeing something like Occidental Petroleum. This doesn't look like much here in the weekly chart, but we're starting to see some initial, very, very near-term bullish momentum come into a stock like this. And so, we want to watch this real carefully. You can be creative, drawing your lines here, but this is something we want to pay attention to. And then last, but certainly not least, one thing that I've been talking a lot about is this this potential catch-up trade. This now goes into the Bitcoin stuff, into the crypto stuff of Ethereum, or the Ethereum ETFs, which I'll tell you in a minute what the ticker is, to potentially catch up with Bitcoin. And so you can see there's two lines. We've talked about this now for, I think, 3 weeks, or at least probably 3 weeks. Bitcoin, obviously, massive rally. So again, the real quality first, right? Same thing as I'm talking about with energy. And then you see a huge potential upside catch-up trade now with Ethereum. And we can take this a step further. So the ETF for Ethereum is ETHA, or at least it's one of them. Bitcoin is IBIT. That's the big one. There's 10 other ones, I think. Bitcoin Cash, not Bitcoin Futures. And so if you compare these two lines, you can see Bitcoin obviously at all-time highs. We reached 100,000 basically, I think, on Friday and over the weekend again, I think. But you can see that this other line here is not yet at all-time highs, and that's Ethereum. If you want to take this a step further, now this requires the actual coin. And again, I'm not going to turn this into a Bitcoin show at all, but we want to make money, right? One other thing here is something called Cardano. And this one here, just to give you perspective on this, is even further away, from its all-time high. So if you zoom out, you can see where this purple line is now versus where it was at its all-time high. So there's a huge amount of potential catch-up trade if this Bitcoin trade continues, right? Again, it's about if you think about an institutional investor, the people that move money, they're not going to go to the riskiest thing first. That's a retail thing to do. That's why a lot of retail investors are going to blow up over the next few years. That's my base case, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. It starts with being in the correct asset classes, by the way, like the higher inflation for longer story. But that's typically what people with real money do, with real institutional money or algos even. They will go towards the things that are highest quality and sort of the safest potential trade to start. And then they will go into riskier and riskier things, I think, as things prove to be working. Whether that's the energy example I gave you, or here in the crypto world. And again, I'm not turning this into a crypto show, but I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. So hopefully this is helpful for those of you that enjoy this kind of a content. Again, I'll quickly just stop here for the day with the SPY. If you're an Inner Circle member, we talked about this last week. We talked about it in the chat room. We talked about it in the morning note as well. We really think 600. And again, we've now reached it this morning already, so that was a bit quick. But ultimately, I still think the S&P could go to the SPY could go to 620 at some point before the year's over. Again, at this point, remember, we're also late. We're late in a year. Thanksgiving is like at the latest possible date it could be this year, meaning it's a week later than usual. So when we come back next week after Thanksgiving, it's December, right? And then things go real fast. Like you have basically 2.5 weeks in December before things slow down to the point where it becomes pointless to do a whole lot of anything. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Excuse me, I'm still coughing, but I'm actually really good otherwise. Coughs tend to linger. We'll be back here tomorrow. We'll be back here on Wednesday, but obviously Thursday we'll be done for the week. Markets are closed, and obviously we don't do the show on Friday. So please give us a thumbs up, please subscribe, because it allows you to be alerted in real time when we do these live sessions. We're going to do a whole lot more of like live pop-up sessions, like live analysis with real trades and everything. Certainly next year, but maybe even starting in December, and you want to be up to date on that. And we've got a ton of great guests that we're going to be hosting as well, as we continue to grow this. So please thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and we will see you back here again tomorrow morning. Thanks for joining. Have a great start to the week.